Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Today we will tell you the full story of how Islam actually began. Let's journey back to an ancient and distant world, Makkah, located in Arabia as it stood around the year 570 AD. This city, amidst harsh deserts and towering mountains, held extraordinary significance for multiple reasons. Most prominently, it was the location of the Kaaba, an ancient temple that was a center for those who came to worship God from far and wide. The Kaaba, even then, was revered as a sacred sanctuary, believed to have been built by Abraham and his son Ishmael, and was intended for the worship of one true God. In addition to its religious importance, Makkah was notable as the birthplace of Muhammad, peace be upon him, who would later become the Prophet of Islam. This period marked a pivotal epoch in the region's history, teetering between ancient practices and the impending transformation that Muhammad's teachings would bring. Muhammad's early life unfolded under challenging circumstances. Before his birth, his father died, leaving his family without a traditional protector. When Muhammad was only 6 years old, he faced another profound loss with the death of his mother. Orphaned and vulnerable, he was then taken into the care of his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, a respected elder of the Quraysh tribe, who provided him with guidance and protection. Unfortunately, this period of stability was short-lived, as his grandfather passed away a few years later. Custody of Muhammad then transferred to his uncle, Abu Talib, who continued to nurture and protect him amidst the often volatile tribal dynamics of Makkah. Growing up in Makkah, Muhammad became acutely aware of the city's deep-seated issues. Despite its importance as a religious center, Makkah was rife with corruption and lawlessness. The ruling clans, preoccupied with power and wealth, often neglected the spiritual and moral aspects of society. This environment shaped Muhammad's perceptions and values profoundly. He was particularly disturbed by the rampant idol worship that had overtaken the pure monotheism the Kaaba was meant to symbolize. Over time, the Kaaba had been filled with idols, representing not just local deities, but also those from distant regions, turning the sanctuary into a pantheon that drew pilgrims and wealth, but strayed far from its original purpose. Amidst this backdrop, Muhammad's character was marked by a sense of justice and a penchant for contemplation. He earned a reputation for honesty and trustworthiness, traits that were rare in the competitive and often ruthless mercantile life of Makkah. His integrity caught the eye of Khadijah, a wealthy widow known for her business acumen. Impressed by Muhammad's principled conduct and sharp intellect, she proposed marriage. Through his marriage to Khadijah, Muhammad not only found personal stability, but also a partnership that would provide him with the support crucial for his future spiritual and social endeavors. This formative period set the stage for what would later become a monumental shift in the religious landscape of Arabia, rooted deeply in the profound experiences and reflections of Muhammad's early years in Makkah. In Makkah, the cultural and religious climate was turbulent as the city grappled with significant moral decay and widespread idolatry. The once sacred site of the Kaaba had become cluttered with idols, representing various deities, diluting the monotheistic intent with which it was originally built. As a central trading hub, Makkah drew a variety of tribes and merchants who brought their customs and gods, making it a melting pot of religious beliefs that often conflicted with the underlying spiritual ethos of the region. Muhammad, growing increasingly disillusioned with the city's materialism and spiritual waywardness, sought solace in solitude. His retreats to a secluded cave in the mountain of Hira during the holy month of Ramadan became his refuge, a place for deep reflection and connection with the divine presence he felt was lost in the hustle of Makkah's streets and markets. These periods of meditation were crucial, for they prepared him for a moment that would alter the course of history. One night, during one of his retreats, Muhammad's life took a dramatic turn. The angel Jibril, known in Christian traditions as Gabriel, appeared before him in the cave. The angel commanded him to read or recite, a startling directive given Muhammad's illiteracy. Muhammad's initial response was one of confusion and fear. He replied that he was not a reader. The angel insisted, pressing him until the words flowed miraculously from Muhammad's lips. He recited verses that would later be recognized as part of the Quran, Islam's holy book. This first revelation, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not," marked the beginning of Muhammad's prophethood. It was a profound call to knowledge and an affirmation of the divine source of wisdom. The words emphasized the creation of humanity and the importance of knowledge, themes that would define Muhammad's subsequent teachings. The experience was overwhelming, and Muhammad left the cave profoundly changed. He hurried back to his wife, Khadija, who became the first to believe in his mission. She consoled and supported him, reassuring him that his experience was indeed a divine revelation and not an illusion. Her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, a learned Christian, confirmed that Muhammad's encounter was similar to divine revelations given to prophets in Jewish and Christian traditions. This affirmation spurred Muhammad to embrace his role as a messenger of God. Muhammad's revelations continued throughout his life, each one deepening and expanding the core messages of monotheism, social justice, and moral integrity. These messages, initially shared quietly within his close circle, gradually reached a broader audience, challenging the prevailing social and religious norms of Makkah. The Quran, compiled from these revelations, called for an unequivocal rejection of idolatry and a return to the worship of one true God, Allah. This monotheistic creed directly confronted the polytheistic practices centered around the Kaaba, setting the stage for a major religious and social transformation. As Muhammad began to share his revelations more widely, the message of monotheism posed a direct threat to the entrenched social and economic structures of Makkah. The Kaaba, surrounded by idols, was not just a religious site but also a commercial center that benefited from the annual influx of pilgrims. Muhammad's insistence on worshiping only one God, Allah, challenged the very foundation of Makkahan society, which was intricately linked to polytheistic practices. The initial followers of Muhammad were often those from the lower strata of society, those who found his message of equality and justice especially resonant. However, as his following grew, it began to include members from more influential families, which alarmed the Makkahan elites. These elites, who held both religious and economic power, viewed Muhammad's teachings as a radical upheaval that could destabilize their dominance. Persecution against Muhammad and his followers intensified. They were often subjected to torture, economic sanctions, and public humiliation. The situation became so dire that Muhammad advised some of his followers to seek refuge in Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, where the Christian king granted them protection. This migration marked the first significant acknowledgement of the Muslim community by a foreign power and provided a temporary safe haven for the beleaguered followers of the new faith. Amidst this growing hostility, a profound event in Muhammad's life, known as the night journey, provided him with renewed conviction and authority. According to Islamic tradition, Muhammad was visited by the angel Jibril one night and taken on a miraculous journey from the sacred mosque in Makkah to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem on a celestial steed named Al-Buraq. In Jerusalem, he led other prophets in prayer, and then ascended to the heavens, where he met various prophets, received instruction, and communed directly with Allah. This journey culminated in Muhammad receiving the command for Muslims to pray 5 times a day, and reinforced his role as a messenger of Allah. This event, whether understood as a physical journey or a spiritual vision, significantly bolstered Muhammad's stature among his followers. It also provided him with a divine mandate that helped to solidify the theological underpinnings of his mission. The experience underscored the link between Muhammad's new faith and the older monotheistic religions, positioning Islam within a broader religious tradition that included Judaism and Christianity. The night journey not only reinvigorated Muhammad, but also gave his followers a profound narrative of spiritual ascendance and divine endorsement. This narrative was crucial as they faced increasing opposition. The details of this journey are celebrated and deeply respected within the Muslim tradition, and they underscore the spiritual depth and the heavenly support for Muhammad's mission. This support was seen as a clear sign that despite the earthly challenges and opposition, the path laid out for Muhammad and his followers was divinely ordained. The relentless persecution in Makkah and the divine affirmation from the night journey set the stage for a pivotal migration in the early history of Islam. The city of Yathrib, later known as Medina, became a sanctuary for Muhammad and his followers. Unlike Makkah, the people of Yathrib were plagued by internal conflicts and saw in Muhammad a potential leader who could unify the tribes under his moral and just leadership. They extended an invitation to him, recognizing both his spiritual leadership and his abilities as a mediator. This migration, known as the Hijra, occurred in 622 AD and marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar, signifying its profound importance to Muslim identity. In Medina, Muhammad established a Muslim community and for the first time had the freedom to practice and preach his message without fear of persecution. He drafted the Constitution of Medina, a revolutionary document that set forth a framework for governance and coexistence among the diverse inhabitants of the city, including Muslims, Jews, and pagans. This was one of the first formal agreements establishing a Muslim state, grounded in legal and religious norms, and it underscored Muhammad's roles as both a spiritual guide and a political leader. As the Muslim community in Medina grew in numbers and strength, the threat they posed to the Makkans escalated. The tension culminated in a series of military confrontations between Muhammad's followers and the Quraysh of Makkah, who were determined to crush this new movement before it could further challenge their power. The first major battle, the Battle of Badr, occurred in 624 AD. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Muslims achieved a surprising and decisive victory. This battle has a significant place in Islamic history, as it was seen not just as a military success, but as a validation of their faith and divine support. The victory at Badr significantly boosted the morale and standing of Muhammad and his followers. However, the subsequent battles showcased the precarious nature of the Muslim situation. The Battle of Uhud in 625 AD was a setback, where the Muslims were initially successful, but ultimately suffered due to a tactical mistake that led to a disorganized retreat and heavy losses. This battle served as a critical lesson in discipline and unity, elements Muhammad emphasized heavily in later campaigns. The final major confrontation during this period was the Battle of the Trench in 627 AD. Faced with a Confederate army much larger than any they had previously encountered, the Muslims employed a brilliant defensive strategy suggested by Salman the Persian, one of Muhammad's companions. They dug a trench around the unprotected sectors of Medina, which effectively neutralized the cavalry advantage of their enemies and led to a lengthy siege. Harsh weather conditions and strategic raids by Muhammad's forces eventually caused the Confederate tribes to abandon the siege. The resilience shown by the Muslims during these battles, combined with strategic and diplomatic maneuvers, gradually eroded the power of the Quraysh and increased Muhammad's influence in the Arabian Peninsula. Each conflict, while fraught with danger, helped to forge a more cohesive and capable Muslim community, setting the stage for the eventual unification of Arabia under Islam. The strategic decisions made during these early conflicts not only solidified Muhammad's leadership, but also laid the foundational principles for military and political conduct in Islamic tradition. Following the series of confrontations that underscored the growing power of the Muslim community in Medina, a pivotal moment arrived in 628 AD with the signing of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah between Muhammad and the Quraysh of Makkah. This treaty was significant as it recognized the Muslims as a legitimate political entity and agreed to a 10-year peace, allowing for safer pilgrimage and trade. Despite initial criticisms from some of Muhammad's followers who saw the terms as unfavorable, Muhammad viewed it as a strategic victory, providing the Muslims much-needed respite and the opportunity to consolidate their strength. This period of relative peace allowed Islam to spread further as Muhammad sent envoys and letters to neighboring kings and rulers, inviting them to embrace Islam. The strategic pause in hostilities enabled a surge in conversions and strengthened Muhammad's position both internally and in the broader region. However, the treaty was short-lived. The Quraysh broke the agreement by attacking a tribe allied with the Muslims. This violation gave Muhammad the justification needed to act against Makkah. In 630 AD, Muhammad gathered a formidable force of 10,000 men and marched on Makkah. The city, realizing its precarious position and the futility of resistance against such a large army, surrendered without significant fighting. Muhammad's entry into Makkah was marked by a series of gestures that emphasized mercy rather than vengeance. Most notably, he declared a general amnesty for past offenses, except for a few individuals deemed too dangerous or guilty of crimes. This act of forgiveness greatly enhanced his reputation and facilitated the integration of his former enemies into the Islamic community. Upon entering the city, one of Muhammad's first acts was to cleanse the Kaaba of its idols, fulfilling his vision of restoring the sanctuary to its monotheistic origins. This act symbolically and physically reaffirmed the Islamic commitment to monotheism. He then circled the Kaaba 7 times, performing the tawaf in an anti-clockwise direction, establishing the ritual as a central act of the Islamic pilgrimage, the Hajj. Muhammad's return to Makkah marked the de facto end of idolatry in the city and solidified his leadership across the Arabian Peninsula. The remaining years of his life were focused on consolidating the legal and theological foundations of Islam, including detailing the rites of pilgrimage and reinforcing social and moral codes that would govern Muslim behavior. Muhammad passed away in 632 AD, 2 years after the conquest of Makkah. His death marked the end of his prophetic mission, but was only the beginning of the expansion of Islam. Under his successors, the caliphs, Islam spread rapidly across the Middle East and North Africa. Muhammad's legacy was not just the spread of a new religion, but the creation of a new socio-political framework that would profoundly influence the course of history. The principles Muhammad established concerning leadership, justice, and social welfare continue to be central themes in Islamic thought. The prohibition against depicting Muhammad in images aims to prevent idolatry and keep the focus on his teachings rather than his persona. This absence of imagery ensures that the divine message of Islam remains pure and unadulterated by human idolization, emphasizing that at the heart of Islam is the worship of one unseen God, and not the veneration of a human figure, however revered. This narrative underscores the transformative journey of Muhammad, from a solitary figure in contemplation to a leader who reshaped the spiritual landscape of his time and established a lasting religious community.